The New England Patriots decided to bypass adding a quarterback in the top 10. They actually traded out of the top 10 in my new 4-round mock draft. We're going to talk about this and more coming up next.
You are locked on. You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL, my national scout and a senior draft analyst. Guys, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know, I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, man, on the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, where this is the best NFL draft content there is out there, man. I want to start this podcast by simply saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Listen, man, this is a Mock Draft Monday show. This is Damian Parson, my guys, Mock Draft Monday, man, and we're going to have some really fun stuff. Talk about the Patriots trading out of the top 10, the Raiders finding their quarterback, and do the Buffalo Bills replace Stefon Diggs. We're going to get into all of that and more. But before we get started, DP, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Mock Draft Monday, I dropped a 4-round mock over at the Draft Network. The link will be in the description, so go check it out. But Keith, you know how we do. Picks 1 through 10. Number 1, it's chalk. Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC, is a Chicago Bear. At pick number 2, the Washington Commanders select Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. At pick number 3, here's where it gets spicy. The New England Patriots saw Drake Maye on the board and still said that the Minnesota Vikings was offering too much, that they could not offer that they could not turn down. The Minnesota Vikings trades up to 3, selects Drake Maye, quarterback out of UNC. The Arizona Cardinals stand pat and draft Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. The Los Angeles Chargers select Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. The New York Giants select J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. The Tennessee Titans select Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. The Atlanta Falcons select Dallas Turner, edge rusher from Alabama. The Chicago Bears with the 9th pick, their original pick, select Malik Neighbors, wide receiver from LSU. And at pick number 10, the New York Jets select Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. Keith, where do you want to begin?
There's a couple of talking points, right, from a strategic standpoint. You know, we talk draft prospects, we talk draft philosophies, right? So I'm going to get into this draft philosophy, DP. Drake Maye with the Minnesota Vikings. So I understand that part. The next pick at pick 4, right, Marvin Harrison Jr. is popular for people to say the Arizona Cardinals trade out of that. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because J.J. McCarthy falls to the New York Giants. So my question for you with your thought process with this mock draft, right, is that the Arizona Cardinals stay put at pick number 4 for Marvin Harrison Jr. But we see the teams like the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, right, that need a quarterback. Was this more so the Arizona Cardinals saying we are not going to trade out of this pick no matter what people are offering us? Or was this more about the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders not trading up, or even the New York Giants, right? Because they stayed at 6 and nobody wanted to go to that number 4 spot, because consistently we've seen 4 quarterbacks in a row. But with yours, it was 3, and then there was a gap, and then a 4th one.
Yeah, it was definitely the Cardinals, right? Like the best offer. If you're going to move out and you're telling me I'm missing out on Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors, that trio, I can't draft any of those guys unless I have the ammunition to trade back up. The only trade offer that makes sense is Minnesota, right? You're going to get what? Because in my mock, the Minnesota Vikings gave the New England Patriots pick number 11, pick 23 that they got from the Texans, and a 2025 first. So basically, essentially a Trey Lance type of trade. 3 first-round picks to move up and get Drake Maye, right? So, yes, that's the most enticing thing. You look at the Denver Broncos, I think you've always said it, the Broncos don't even have a second-round pick. So it's like, okay, we get a first for this year. So we're swapping first. We get a first next year. Then what? So the Broncos don't even have the ammunition, in my opinion, for a team like the Cardinals to even pick up the phone and take them serious. Where the Raiders are like, you know what? We got our eyes on Michael Penix. We're cool standing pat and sitting where we are because we believe that he'll fall here, which I honestly believe he will too. Where the Broncos are sitting there like, we don't really have much to offer. And that, unless they're throwing out some players like a Patrick Surtain, then yeah, we could talk a little bit, right? If you're the Arizona Cardinals, you need a CB1. You know what I'm saying? Then you say, you know what? I'll draft a receiver at pick 20, pick 26, wherever they're picking in the back end of the first round with that Texans pick. But yeah, it was like that for me, where I was like, all right, it's either pick the best player the guy who I believe is the best player in the draft and be the best impact for this team, or take a lackluster trade. And like I said, Minnesota trade up in front of them. There was no other trade that made sense to me.
Yeah, and so this is I think I'm here with this situation because it's a real popular situation with the Arizona Cardinals, and this is where I'm at, and I don't think I'm moving off of it. Is Cardinals just stay at pick 4? Stay at pick 4. It's hard to get layups when drafting. We like to throw out analytics and logistics and numbers and everything. 50% of first round picks do not work out. That's all I need to know, right? And this is as easy as a layup as you should get drafting, right? So half of the guys that you draft, they will not work out in the first round, let alone the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, right? So I'm taking the guy that everybody's telling me is the sure thing, right? Because drafting is not a sure thing. So take as close to the sure thing as you possibly can. And this is the other part, right? Just because this is the other thing, is that the draft, like the draft pick, I guess, like grading charts to where it's like, hey, a first, like the 5th overall pick is worth this many points, and we have to get to this many points. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. So even if you trade back, right, to 10 or 11, and you're like, you know what, to get back to 5, we just have to trade this many draft picks to get to that point, right? That's not true. And the reason I'm saying it's not true is because the human element of the other general manager could still say, I don't want to do it, right? It's right. Not like it's a currency to where if you pay $5, you're going to get something back in return. You can give them whatever you want, and if they don't want to move out of that spot, you're not guaranteed to go back there. So, DP, that's the reason why I'm sitting and I'm like, you know
I'm
what?
With you too.
I wouldn't do it just because there's too much. You have a sure thing, and then now what you're turning that sure thing into is an unsure thing, right? And that's where you start to get in murky waters for the draft. So yeah, with the Arizona Cardinals, I'm sitting right. I'm like, you know what? Pick 4, Marvin Harrison Jr. falls to me. Let's take it. Let's rock and roll and go from there.
Yeah, Keith, I'm with you, and I love how you phrase that. The sure thing. I'm not gambling a sure thing for a maybe. I just can't. And then you gotta think, okay, people are like, well, maybe you trade back up. We talked about that last week, right? The NFL draft trades that we think could or should happen. If I'm Arizona, the only way I'm trading out is if I already have a trade in place with the Chargers. But that's to say the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh are going to say, man, wait, we're at 5. Jim Harbaugh already said it. The draft starts at 5. If people are projecting 4 QBs in the top 4, then the draft, the number 1 pick is actually at 5. Meaning, if you think I'm going to trade down and I watched Marvin Harrison Jr. torture me for the year I was still, the 2 years I was in Michigan. No, I'm not messing with that, Keith. But I'm like, real quick before we transition to the next picks, Keith, JJ McCarthy. When you look at this list, right? JJ McCarthy, Malik Neighbors to Chicago, right? And then Rome Odunze. Which one of those picks really stand out in terms of like that was a home run for the team?
Looking at to be honest, I like all 3 DP. I like Rome Odunze to the Chargers, giving them another big-bodied wide receiver. JJ McCarthy to the Giants. I've been on this podcast, right, pounding the table that the Giants need to take a quarterback. They need a new project. Brian Daboll needs something to get going. Like I said, I will be really angry if he's asking me to be, if the front office is asking me to be in position to run this offense without Saquon Barkley and only Daniel Jones. But what could be the most fun is the Malik Neighbors situation. And I just think about this with Caleb Williams, DP, and how all of those, you could put those bubble screens in there and those quick screens in there and all those different things, right? And then now you have two great run after the catch guys in Malik Neighbors and DJ Moore. So it's like, how do you guard that, right? And then we talked about being able to put Malik in the slot. He can play slot now because he has Keenan Allen and he has DJ Moore, right? And he could just be the slot wide receiver with the two-way option. So I think that has the opportunity to be electric. Two teams I don't think should run from wide receivers at all is the Atlanta Falcons and the Chicago Bears. I know they have other positional needs, but if one or two, like if those elite guys fall to them, take them regardless, and you figure out this is a deep offensive tackle class, deep corner class, right? Other positional needs, you just figure it out.
No, I feel you. I think that's where, I looked at Atlanta and I said, man, like this will be fun. And I'm like, they really need an edge rusher. I was like, Dallas Turner just seems like I think he would be a great, especially for what they have on the interior defensive line. David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, who has completely transformed his body coming off this injury. He looks like he's ready to roll right now. And I'm like, when those two guys are going to command so much attention on the interior, that gives Dallas Turner have a ton of one-on-one opportunities in this defense with Raheem Morris. And we saw what he did for Byron Young last year, who was extremely toolsy himself, and get this young, I think he had like 8-9 sacks as a rookie. I was like, man, I like that fit a lot. But Malik Neighbors definitely like, it was a toss-up between those two for the Falcons for me.
Yep, 100% with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. We are on to picks 11 through 20. Yes, and I'm going to go ahead and give a little sneak peek. We have a couple more quarterbacks coming off the board. To which teams? Stay tuned to find out.
Buying tickets to your next big event or your next Major League Baseball game should not be such a stress. Guys, I know that when you're trying to buy tickets at the last minute, it could be pricey. You're competing with other buyers and so forth and so on. Let me introduce you to Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of Major League Baseball tickets. As a matter of fact, guys, the New York Mets, if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area on this coming Tuesday, the 9th at 7:20, the New York Mets are coming to play the Atlanta Braves. Guys, you can get tickets right now for as cheap as $5 a piece on the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Picks 11 through 20. At number 11, the New England Patriots select Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle out of Penn State. At pick number 12, the Denver Broncos stand pat. Don't trade up, but they still get a quarterback. Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. At pick 13, Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington, is a Las Vegas Raider. At pick 14, the New Orleans Saints select Talise Fuaga, offensive tackle, right tackle out of Oregon State. At pick 15, the Indianapolis Colts select Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa. At pick 16, the Seattle Seahawks select Jared Verse, edge rusher from Florida State. At pick 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. At pick 18, the Cincinnati Bengals select Johnny Jerzon Newton, interior defensive lineman from Illinois. At pick 19, the Los Angeles Rams select Byron Murphy II, interior defensive lineman from Texas. And at pick 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. And Keith, I know, like, pick 19, and I know people will be like, DP, why'd you do it to this kid? But my thought process was simple. You lose Aaron Donald, right? Kobe Turner out of Wake Forest had a really strong rookie year alongside Aaron Donald, along with Byron Young, I'm sorry. So for my thought process was this: you're not going to replace Aaron Donald. You're probably never going to actually replace probably the greatest defensive player of all time, right? But I'd rather have 2 for 1 than just trying to replace him with 1. And I think about Kobe Turner is such a really good pass rusher already, putting a Byron Murphy who is so stout and so powerful at the point of attack as a run defender, was right alongside him, who also collapses the pocket. So now you think about Kobe Turner, Byron Murphy, and Byron Young as your 3 kind of young blue chip type of players going forward. I felt like that would put the the Los Angeles Rams defensive line and front seven in a really good spot going forward, rather than just leaving Kobe Turner there and then trying to add somebody rounds 2, 3, 4 to again try to mitigate the loss of Aaron Donald. I want to put another highly talented dude right in that spot and just pray for the best, because I think Byron Murphy gives you he gives you 3-down versatility and 3-down value, but also just the athleticism, the strength, and how he plays. I just feel like that plus Kobe Turner gives him a really good interior defensive line duo.
Yeah, it's definitely an asset, right? When you're talking about a guy like Byron Murphy, definitely an asset. Which I don't mind. The Rams can go multiple different positions. I believe. I think they can go corner, interior defensive line, edge rusher. Right. I think they're in position where if you're thinking defensively, you potentially just take best player available, and even along the offensive line, right? The Los Angeles Rams shoot. If one of these tackles, if Talise Fuaga doesn't go early, right, and he falls to 19, without a doubt, you take him, right, and you just let him go from there. But I'm gonna look at some of these other picks. DP, I really like the Jared Verse combination with, and you even put it in the your description with Boye Mafe, right? Having two heavy-handed stand-up edge rushers who are versatile, right? Both at between that 255 and 270 type range as far as their body profile that can really collapse the pockets and do multiple things. So I really like that selection. And then we talked about Talise Fuaga with the New Orleans Saints. I really like that situation. And then Quinyon Mitchell, DP, is he your CB1 off the board? I'm looking at it. No, Cooper DeJean went early. Cooper DeJean was your first corner off the board. Was that more about scheme fit for you with Cooper DeJean coming off the board first?
Yeah, I think, this is a guy who's kind of a zone match man type of cornerback in Cooper DeJean. And I think he just, talking about fitting like a glove, I think he fits that Gus Bradley type of defense very well, especially with his playmaking ability, his athleticism, willingness to tackle. He fits everything about that defense more than, truthfully, I think any of the other corners do, because Gus Bradley wants corners that will tackle. You got to stop the run game in that division as well. And then also his playmaking ability and the versatility to be able to play some nickel, drop off deep in the coverage, or play some safety. He could do, like Gus Bradley does a lot of zone stuff, and I feel like that is a perfect fit for what Cooper DeJean brings.
So is this breaking news, DP, where Cooper DeJean is your CB1, or is this living in the essence of the mock draft, and this is how you see the draft playing out? Like, I'm trying to see which one is this breaking news, or is this the mock draft, and this is how you see the mock playing out?
I still got Quinyon. at number one, but Cooper DeJean is not far behind. I just like I said, that fit, man, and it just feels like that also is trending in that direction. I think when the Colts are at 15, when we get to the real draft, Keith, I think there's three prospects. I think they're going to really, if all three are on the board, there's going to be I feel like they use the entire clock, Keith. You know what I mean? The entire time limit, and it's Brian Thomas Jr., Brock Bowers, and Cooper DeJean. I think if those three guys are staring them in the face at 15, and I know some people are like, well, just run with Brock Bowers. I agree. Brock Bowers is, quote unquote, the more thoroughbred blue chip prospect out of him. But it's like, all right, if Brian Thomas Jr. hits his ceiling, like this is a game record type of receiver with his size, athleticism, his speed. Plus, you pairing that with Anthony Richardson, he almost replaces Alec Pierce. You know what I mean? On the outside, opposite of Michael Pittman. And you think about the fact that, from what I've been told, the Colts, is a strong chance they go defense early because of the fact that they have some questions. Not some, they have questions at corner, especially with guys not being healthy last year, like Juju Brents. They got to shore up that secondary and that defense. Safeties are fine. Corner is the question. And I think Cooper DeJean, I think he's supposed to, or if he hasn't already had his pro day because he's healthy now, I think that's going to be kind of right on time, Keith. You're the last player these GMs and scouts will see, work out live. I think that would be to his benefit.
Well, DP, breaking news last week, right? Since we're on the topic of breaking news, is when Stefon Diggs got traded to the Houston Texans, away from the Buffalo Bills, leaving the Buffalo Bills with a hole at wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. So we about to find out if the Buffalo Bills decide to replace Stefon Diggs with a wide receiver from this draft, and who. Coming up next with picks 21 through 32.
220, 2-1. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How is your social battery right now? Are you drained? Do you have a lot of energy? Right? I know for me personally, I'm a little bit in between. Some days I got a bursting of energy. Some days I need coffee, energy drink, more sleep, because we're in the dead dog days, the final stretch to the 2024 NFL draft. And I wouldn't be doing my job as a draft analyst, all right, and scouting to bring you guys the best content if I wasn't working my butt off. So that's kind of why it is. But guys, at the same time, with winter transitioning over, especially down here in the South in the spring, it can be easy to ignore our social battery and spread ourselves thin, especially with social gatherings after picking up from the winter. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Okay, find your social sweet spot with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/locked-on today to get 10% off your first month. All right, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And Keith, let's close this thing out, man. Let's bring it home. At pick 21, the Miami Dolphins select Jackson Powers Johnson, interior offensive lineman from Oregon. At pick 22, the Philadelphia Eagles select Terrion Arnold, cornerback from Alabama. At pick 23, the New England Patriots find their wide receiver one of the future, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU. At pick 24, the Dallas Cowboys select Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle from Washington. At pick 25, the Green Bay Packers select Graham Barton, interior offensive lineman from Duke. At pick 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Leatu Latu, edge rusher from UCLA. At pick 27, the Arizona Cardinals go with Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Alabama. At pick 28, the Buffalo Bills select Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas. At pick 29, the Detroit Lions select Darius Robinson, defensive lineman from Missouri. At pick 30, the Baltimore Ravens select Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State. At pick 31, the San Francisco 49ers select Kingsley Sewell-Mattia, offensive tackle from BYU. And at pick 32, the reigning defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs select Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. Keith, let's go up to 28. Adonai Mitchell. And I saw a stat, and I also heard the same stat over at Locked On Bills, and I was listening to our colleague Joe Marino talk about the Buffalo Bills situation with Diggs, and he said down the stretch, the last 12 games, Diggs was targeted like 80 times compared to, I think, like 30 or 40, whatever it was, or 50, somewhere in there, to your boy. Why am I blanking on his name right now?
Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, Khalil Shakir. I want to call him Khalil Shepard for some reason. Khalil Shakir, but Khalil, I think, had either the same amount of yards or a little bit more yards. So, like, the how they got him involved kind of goes back to your tweet that's almost 2 years old that people fried you for, that's going to come back, in your favor, that they really started to factor him into that offense, him and Dalton Kincaid down the back end stretch of that of the season. I think so. For me, it was coming into this was like Adonai Mitchell falling right here at 28. I think it's a good fit. Height, weight, speed prospect, really good route runner. A guy that could play the X, play the Z, play in the slot, do different things, and gives Josh Allen another young, toolsy receiver to develop with.
Yeah, so I like AD Mitchell from the route running perspective, right? I think the consistency part, we're going to have to figure out where that aligns. And I was just watching him on ESPN they did like a draft feature type situation where, just interviews and talking about their life and stuff like that. Seems like a solid young man overall. He's talking about having a daughter and everything. So I hope that just the rumblings of maturity right in as he enters the NFL, because the Buffalo Bills are going to need him, right? And even when I liked Khalil Shakir, right, I said that the tweet was, and this was I think 2 years ago, that Bills Mafia got on me, like you said, it's going to come back around. I was like, this is probably he's their second best wide receiver. And that was when Gabe Davis was there. And it was because I felt skill set wise he was. Now, the threshold is, do I think Khalil Shakir is a number one wide receiver in the NFL? I'm not sure about that, DP. So with AD Mitchell coming in, AD is going to have to step up and maybe be a wide receiver too. And maybe the Buffalo Bills are going to have to run with two wide receiver twos and their tight end, right, Dalton Kincaid from last year's draft as being an opposing threat. So we'll see how that thing unfold. But Deep, I have a couple question marks. First, the New England Patriots with Brian Thomas Jr. It scares me, DP. It scares me for a lot
I
of
knew it
lot of
would.
lot of reasons, DP. I am flat out nervous for this. One, because they don't have a high volume quarterback right now, right? Offensively, they're trying to figure a lot of things out. And some of it is not even surrounding Brian Thomas, right? As I'm listing off.
Mhm.
But this wide receiver core, I'm of the notion, and this is how I feel about Brian Thomas. In the right situation, allowed to do the things that he does best, I like him. In a situation where he has to do it all immediately, I get nervous about the production. And you just want to make sure with young, I feel like this when those guys are making that transition from college to the NFL, right? You almost want to mentally keep them in a good spot or make sure that they're mentally, in a place to keep building wins, right? And not necessarily wins talking about on the field, but their own mental wins of like, hey, I'm getting better, I'm making this next step, right? I'm, consistently climbing the ladder of being who I was in college. And
Yeah.
it just New England could be such a just where they are offensively, it can be a place where I feel like they can get lost, right? Like Kayshon Boutte, which he had a situation even before he touched the NFL, but we all thought that this guy was talented and something would emerge from there. And it's just, there's been so many wide receivers, DP, that have went there and just haven't emerged, and become top guys. And just knowing Brian Thomas and what he has to develop, it kind of just scares me a little bit, DP, just for him and just the situation.
No, and that's warranted, Keith. I thought about those exact same things myself, and I just started kind of like, all right, you know, what's the difference with this team? Gerard Mayo stepping in. The offense is going to be somewhat similar. I expect them to run the ball with Ramondre Stevenson, still be smash mouth with that offensive line. But I expect their passing game to look a little bit closer to what we saw in Cleveland at times with Alex Van Pelt coming over from Cleveland is now the OC, bringing one of his coaches. I think I forget the wide receiver coach is Tyler Hughes, who's joining him as well. And the tight ends coach, I believe, all came from Cleveland with him. So I think like with Jacoby Brissett, knowing he's a good pro quarterback, and spoiler alert, I gave him a quarterback in like round, I think two or three, I can't remember. I gave him a quarterback. You know what I mean? One that we like on this show. So you got to check out the mock, guys. I'm not gonna spill the news on there, but I gave him a QB. But I think with Brian Thomas, you got Juju return. You got Pop Douglas in the slot. I think what they're going to have is going to put him in the position to where he's kind of brought along slowly as wide receiver one, where it's going to be your kind of the role is going to be that X receiver, that big play receiver, that big play threat, where they're getting to that 40, 45 to 50 mid-range, midfield type of situation. 1st and 10, big play just happened. Now it's a shot play, it's a money play type of ball game, whereas like you go for the jugular, once you cross the 45 into the 50. So I think that's the situation where this team isn't ready to take that step, and I think that pressure is going to be less off them when they were drafting receivers in the past. It was like we got Tom Brady, we got Bill Belichick, we got Josh McDaniels. It was like we win championships, we go to the playoffs, and these young cats coming in like, hey man, I came from Tulane, brother. Like we ain't used to that type of pressure, and I think it's going to be a little different. But what the expectations for them going to be. But Keith, like, so that's what I had really liked that putting him there, because I think long term it's a great situation for him. I think that team will be able to get what they need to get out of him. Latu to Tampa, Keith, and I know some people like when they saw Jared Verse go before him, they saw Dallas Turner go before him. I think the Dallas Turner thing is like that Alabama, Georgia connection. They're close in proximity. They understand what he brings, and that's just an explosive rusher that they need. The Seattle Seahawks pick, when I gave them Jared Verse, I had to think about the division too, Keith. And the division that they're in is a kind of smash mouth division, right? Arizona with Jonathan Gannon, teams kind of runs the rock. You know what I mean? San Francisco, they run the rock. The Rams, they run the rock. And it's not saying that Latu is a bad run defender. He's a more edge rusher, more of an edge rusher and pass rush specialist than he is a true edge setter, where I look at Jared Verse can do both. And I think he'll be a better fit opposite of a Boye Mafe, because at the end of the day, you got to get to the quarterback, you got to stop them on 1st and 2nd downs. You got to limit those run games on 1st and 2nd downs. I feel like Jared Verse is much more equipped for that, but putting Latu in Tampa, but I love that fit, right? I love that fit of him with Tall Bulls. I think Tall Bulls will really be able to scheme him, get him those one-on-one opportunities, maybe put him in some wide nine situations, kind of flex him out a little bit, get that tackle on the island. And we know this guy knows how to win outside, Keith. You know, it's how to win inside. He's got counters. He has a robust pass rush package. I think that was just like a really great fit for that team, especially a team that's trying to make it back to the playoffs and win that division for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I wonder, DP, if the edge rushers falling is more of a NFL media type situation, or is it the NFL feels that way too, right? Because it just seems like as soon as they ran it 40 times and it wasn't 4-4s, everybody was like, you know what, let's just drop them, right? Like just erase the film, let's just drop them. But I think those guys are going to be very productive and be good NFL football players. DP, I'm gonna wrap this up real quick, man. Just talking about Graham Barton to the Green Bay Packers. Graham Barton at his pro day, I'm pretty sure he measured in at what, 6'5", I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think he came in at 6'5", so 6'5" is tall enough to play tackle, right? Now maybe the arm length and the limbs and things like that, but the overall point is that I think that Graham Barton may go a lot higher than what people think, because now this is truly a guy who has three, like he can play all three positions, right? Yep. Tackle, guard, and center, because he proved to have the height to play tackle. Usually the threshold is at that 6'4" type range, and this is a guy that measured in at 6'5". So that's going to be really exciting, man. We're going to have some fun, DP. I think I'm going to jump in there and do another mock draft. We are unloading everything we have as far as draft content, right, coming up these next couple of weeks as we close out, because the draft is, 3 weeks away, DP, so it's right around the corner. But listen, man, that wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. Your number one source for everything NFL draft content, man. I want to say shout out to everydays. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. If you haven't hit the like button, go ahead, hit the like button. If you haven't commented, man, comment. How do you feel about DP's mock draft? Listen, don't hold off on them, man. If you disagree, let them know. We can have some fun, talk about it in the comments. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel with the best NFL draft content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. But listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my co-host, my guy, Mr. Mock Draft Monday himself, dropping a 4-round mock drafts, man, is Damian Parson. And you can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.